Hey guys, this is Paulo with Meditation Amsterdam. In today's video, I want to talk about the importance of understanding how and why one should strike always at the root of the mind when dealing with pretty much anything in our lives. And the topic came to mind while watching a few videos in which supposed experts in different areas are trying to tell us how to live our lives. And I include experts in the spiritual area in that bucket. So, nowadays when one is trying to figure out how to conduct oneself, how to prioritize things in life, how to be happy and have a fulfilling life. There's no shortage of advice, and it ranges from advice to get your life in order in the style of Jordan Peterson, in which you're supposed to, find something really challenging and dedicate yourself to it, or essentially sacrifice yourself to it. There's people telling you how to, or giving you dating advice. There's people giving you financial advice and how, once your finances are sorted out, you have then the latitude to do whatever you want. And in the spiritual arena, I've encountered tons of different advice. People telling you, no, it's about forgiveness, right? And it's no, it's about empathy. It's about stillness. It's about integration. It's about the shadow work and the resolution of your trauma. It's about embodiment, and the list goes on. And there's people trying out also certain type of or different types of meditation, right? Metta meditation, transcendental meditation, forest tradition, Thai forest meditation, and so on. And it just it struck me that there's a marketplace now of ideas on how to live one's life, and there could not be more variety, and there could not be more fragmentation, and more there's a plethora of suggestions of what makes for a good life. And many of the people that I work with express confusion because of that, especially if they are trying to follow a spiritual discipline. And it's true to say that also through your spiritual journey, you may experiment and go quite broad before finding a more focused and dedicated type of practice, right? What they would call digging a single deep well instead of 20 shallow ones. In martial arts, it is well known that if you take your opponent's root, if you take their grounding, you basically take their whole body, and there's nothing they can do about it at that point. So striking at the root is known to be ultimately what you want to achieve. And the same goes for the mind. See, this variety of suggestions of whether it is discipline or whether it is this and that or the other as the ultimate solution gets lost in tactical advice on what may be very surface level stuff, or potentially somewhat deeper, but still not at the root of the mind. And the root of the mind was discovered by the Advaitins or the yogins in ancient times, to be the sense of I am, or the I amness, the individual sense of self. Ramana Maharshi speaks of the aham vritti. A vritti is a fluctuation of the mind, right? Thought, in other words. Could come in the form of imagery, sound, mostly. And vrittis are happening in the mind all the time. But the aham vritti, the thought or the sense I am, is the primary fluctuation of the mind, is the one out of which all the other fluctuations spring. Therefore, it is the one that we want to colonize and conquer and integrate. So long as we are dealing with surface level phenomena in the mind, such as thoughts, actions, and emotions, without dealing with the root out of which those thoughts, actions, and emotions spring, we're going to be essentially playing a game of whack-a-mole. I don't know if you've guys seen that game Whack-A-Mole, but it was this game where these moles would pop out at random very quickly, and you had a little hammer and you had to whack them. So it was called Whack-A-Mole, and it was really difficult, right? But so they would pop out, and you would constantly try to whack them. Well, that's a losing game when it comes to the mind, because the amount of vrittis or fluctuations, ideas, issues, hang-ups, fears, phobias, limerence, obsessions, addictions, distractions, you name it, are essentially infinite. And we only have one channel of attention, one channel of focused attention, such as the hammer in the game. So that's not the way to play the game. You don't want to be playing whack-a-mole with your mind. What you want to do is you want to strike at the very root of the mind by taking hold with your attention of the sense I am. And it's a very tricky thing to do. It takes a lot of time and dedication to do that, but it's the most effective thing that we can do. Once the sense of I am is, I'm not going to say dominated, because that has a very yang and a rather imperialistic ring to it. And in today's climate, it's probably not the flavor that we want to share, but once you have fully colonized and integrated the sense of I am, one starts to recognize, or one comes to recognize, that the sense I am is just another sense in the mind, but it's a very deep and a very implicit sense. And interestingly enough, if we have something like an obsession or a phobia or an addiction, we can use those as alerts or triggers to know that the sense I am is sort of offering itself to us to be seen and colonized. So we can use pretty much anything that is happening in the mind to ask the question, who is it that needs to now speak up or take a certain action or avoid a certain action, or who is it that is feeling a certain emotion? But that question is not a philosophical question. It's not to start musing mentally about the topic. It's so that you may orient your attention to find out indeed what it is that feels like I. When you say, I really want to eat candy, for example, right? So take the addiction to sugar. Well, I really want to eat candy. What do I mean by I? Is therefore the operative question. It's less to do with the habit, it's less to do with candy, or it's less to do with a phobia in case it's spiders. It is more to do with who is claiming I at this moment. What is it that claims identity with me? Because to go back to, is it Ramana? I'm doubting now. I believe it might be Nisargadatta Maharaj, who said that the self, the real self, is attributeless. It has no attributes. It's pure subjectivity. but it's a subjectivity that takes many different forms. But prior to taking forms, it's totally vacuous of content or identity. It only has the capacity to know. So that's what we call knowledge. And we may more accurately refer to it as knowingness. And that is an aspect of that attributeless self. The moment the self has an attribute, is not the pure self anymore. It's not your real self. The sense I am has a flavor to it. It has a quality to it. If nothing else, it has the quality of individuality. And therefore, it's not your real self. But it certainly feels like it. And the only way to get around that is to relentlessly observe it, to use it as a kind of polishing cloth for the mind. And the more our attention resides on the pure I am, the more that I am is extricated from the real self, which is, as I said, attributeless. It can't be seen, but you are it, and you know that you are. You can come to implicitly know that you are, and that the sense of self, because it can be seen, is not you. This takes a subtle mind. It takes a stable mind, and subtlety and stability are not qualities that the mind usually possesses at the start of that journey. So we are back to a number of practices that we may have to engage in, such as the resolution of trauma indeed, such as embodiment indeed, such as breath work indeed. But see, knowing what we're going for is very, very important. And if we can understand what we're going for more clearly from the start, puts the variety of practices in a context in which none of them is ultimately that important. They are all serving a purpose. And the purpose is not to quiet the mind, nor to make us feel better, which are typical red herrings that we fall into when we engage in the spiritual practice. We think, if I do spirituality well, I will feel better, right? Or if a certain practice soothes me, if it soothes my nervous system, that means it's working and I'm doing it right, such as meditation, for example. Or if I manage to focus really well and make my mind steady, that means that I'm getting closer to awakening. And whilst a steady and subtle mind have a better chance of having you awaken to your true nature, it's not quite the same. Focus of mind and stability of mind are a dead end when pursued for their own sake. But to not have them can really hamper the diving into the I amness and the exploration or the self-inquiry that we want to do, to grab the mind at its very root, which is what we want to be dealing with ultimately. Rupert Spira calls this the direct path, and there are several Advaita teachers and teachers of self-realization that call this the direct path, and that is correct. That is as direct a path as it gets. However, direct should not be mistaken for immediate or easy. It's not. If anything, this path being so direct will more quickly get you into direct contact with all the barriers to self-realization. And then those can be navigated skillfully with shadow work, embodiment, and self-regulation. So the direct path doesn't mean the immediate path. And yeah, maybe you'll get the taste of being a Buddha for a second, but that doesn't carry much weight in practical life. It takes a lot of practice for the nervous system to gear into a different mode of dealing with external input and dealing with internal affects dealing with difficult memories, dealing with our own karmic tendencies and so on. That it just takes time to change a nervous system. There may be elements that we can use to accelerate that change. Some of them come with certain risks, such as psychedelics, and ultimately, wisdom is something that cannot be productized or accelerated. So the development of patience, the development of what you could call, I had a word for it. It's forbearance, patience, those kind of things. That just doesn't happen overnight. It's impossible, right? It's a maturation process, and it's almost akin to kind of, as I said, either polishing the mind or cooking and simmering the nervous system, presenting it with enough friction and stress, whether coming in from life circumstances or which we can purposefully generate through our practice in order to accelerate that maturation process. So in essence, this video is meant to be an invitation to try to understand that the root of the mind is the sense I am, and that one ought to, as quickly as possible, try to tap into that and understand that that is ultimately the one clean practice that is most effective, or the only practice according to Ramana which is effective ultimately, which stands no chance of becoming egoic, because we are striking at the root of the ego with our attention. Every other practice has the chance to become egoic in nature, or has the chance to land us in a cul-de-sac, right? It's something that, okay, so you can burn a hole through things with your attention, but that says nothing about your egoic sense of self, so long as you still carry it around. So that's the part that needs to be addressed. And also how, as direct as that path is, it does not make it easy or immediate. And therefore, there is a host of practices and cultivation techniques that can support us and that can support the depth of that exploration into the sense I am, which ultimately leads to self-realization. So that is the essence of today's topic, and I'm actually curious to hear what you guys make of it. As usual, if you think these talks are useful, then your liking, sharing, and subscribing is always very much welcome, and might help others out there also come in contact with the content. So thanks again for listening thus far, and I'll be back with more pretty soon. Cheerio. Bye-bye.